On January 1st, 2017, Roy Asbury Cooper III was sworn in as the 75th governor of the Tar Heel State. A little more than a year later, on April 24, 2018, Governor Cooper appointed Honorable Carolyn J. Thompson as a Superior Court judge in the 9th Judicial District, replacing the Honorable Senior Resident Superior Court Judge Robert Hobgood. 2 months later, in June 2018, Governor Cooper appointed Jackie Shelton Green as the state's Poet Laureate, the first African American and third female to serve in the 2-year position as official ambassador for the spoken word. On February 12, 2019, Governor Roy Cooper appointed Sherry L. Beasley as the Chief Justice for the North Carolina Supreme Court to replace the retiring Chief Justice, Mark Martin. Ms. Beasley was the first African-American woman to hold the position of Chief Justice in the history of the state's Supreme Court. Appointment of these bright, accomplished, professional black women to prestigious, often history-making positions is commendable and worthy of applause. However, Roy Cooper's handling of the Duke Lacrosse and murder cases involving Crystal Mangum threatens his legacy as a champion of racial and gender equality. Despite efforts by the state and media to prevent it, the elusive truths about the widespread conspiracy launched against Ms. Mangum will soon become evident to the masses. In the late evening of March 13, 2006, Crystal Mangum was sexually assaulted and sodomized at a beer-guzzling, stripper-oogling party hosted by the Duke Lacrosse team, renowned for its debauchery and uncouth behavior. Afterwards, she received medical attention at Duke University Hospital's emergency department, and Durham police were called to investigate the sex crime. Following the assault, Crystal Mangum was emotionally traumatized. For a month, she cried for days on end. She couldn't sleep, she had no appetite, and it was impossible for her to discuss the incident. As a result, the relationship with her boyfriend was disrupted and dysfunctional. Though a decade before protections of the Me Too movement, Crystal Mangum sought to have criminal charges brought against the 3 assailants, who she later identified as Duke Lacrosse players from families of prestige, power, and privilege. To assure the case would not be swept under the rug and dismissed due to social status of both involved parties, Durham District Attorney Mike Nifong assumed charge of the prosecution, a daunting task. He was advised to drop the prosecution, but despite potential risk to his career, he soldiered on. In the months that followed the incident, Mangum was interviewed by police investigators and members of the Durham District Attorney's Office. Investigators weren't the only ones seeking to interview Crystal Mangum, the single black mother at the center of this calamity of national media proportions. Media types, including talk show hosts, sought to speak with her. Overwhelmed by the attention and still traumatized by the event, Mangum was reticent about complying with such interview requests, her boyfriend desirous of privacy. In June 2006, Durham attorneys Anita and Ralph Hunt of the Hunt Law Firm contacted Crystal Mangum through one of her relatives from church. Meeting with Mangum at her cousin's house, the Hunts offered to represent Mangum, believing that she was entitled to damages against Duke University because the rental house where the assault took place was owned by Duke University. Mangum entered into a contractual agreement with the Hunt Law Firm, signing at that June meeting. The firm discouraged its client from interacting with the press so as not to turn the case into a media circus. Even an interview request from Oprah Winfrey was rejected, with some apprehension from Mangum about not proceeding with it. The Hunt strategy was for Crystal Mangum to lay low until the criminal charges facing the 3 Duke student-athlete defendants had been resolved, and then to proceed with a civil lawsuit. Until that time, the Hunts did not want their contractual relationship with Crystal Mangum known. Approximately a week after taking on Mangum as a client, the Hunts arranged for her to receive counseling from psychologist Mary Baker Sinclair. Dr. Baker Sinclair is a partner and co-owner of Chapel Hill Pediatric Psychology located in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Crystal Mangum estimated that she attended hour-long psychology sessions with Dr. Baker Sinclair twice a week for 5 to 6 months. Sessions which Crystal Mangum felt immensely helped her to recover from the traumatic sexual assault in March 2006. Crystal Mangum considered these sessions not only extremely beneficial, but even life-saving. Following the Duke assault, friends were few and she had no one in whom she could confide. However, Dr. Baker Sinclair represented someone safe with whom to talk and release bottled-up emotions. Therapy helped mend the relationship with her boyfriend. It enabled her to find peace, allowed her to address issues of guilt, and to even resolve severe problems with insomnia. Most importantly, it enabled her to move from a starvation, subsistent diet to one that would sustain a viable pregnancy and result in the birth of a healthy baby girl. The Hunt Law Firm paid for these invaluable therapeutic services, never seeking compensation from Miss Mangum for them. Later, the Hunts would ask Crystal Mangum to sign a medical release so that they could have a copy of the psychological record produced by Dr. Baker Sinclair. Mangum complied. By late December 2006, Durham District Attorney Mike Nifong was forced to relinquish control of prosecuting the Duke Lacrosse case because the North Carolina State Bar had initiated a grievance against him for his handling of it. On January 13, 2007, the North Carolina Attorney General's Office took charge of the prosecutorial investigation into the Duke Lacrosse case from DA Mike Nifong. Late in March 2007, Crystal Mangum was contacted by the Attorney General's Office and asked to appear for an interview a short time later. Mangum informed her attorneys about the interview, but the Hunts, wanting to keep their contractual affiliation with her concealed, assured their client that she could readily handle the session without their presence. On the morning of or around March 28, 2007, Durham police officers picked up Crystal Mangum and transported her to the Raleigh SBI office where the hearing was held. Sitting around a conference table were NC Assistant Attorneys General Mary Winstead and James Coleman, along with 2 SBI agents. Mangum noticed that there was no recording devices in the conference room and that no one was taking notes of the proceeding. The Assistant Attorneys General bombarded Crystal Mangum with questions and statements challenging the veracity of her version of what had transpired at the ill-fated party. Instead of an information-gathering interview, Mangum felt interrogated, badgered, browbeaten, given the third degree, and grilled by the attorneys general. The SBI agents asked questions, but were not confrontational or argumentative, as were Assistant AGs Winstead and Coleman. At one point in the proceedings, a cell phone video of the events that night were played that showed Miss Mangum outside the house screaming at Duke partygoers, "I'm a cop! I'm a cop!" This video captured scene happened following the sexual assault, and Mangum stated that she was traumatized and made the claims in hopes of warding off the revelers. The morning session, which began at 9 a.m., ended around noon with an hour's lunch break, lunch being brought into the conference room. Afterwards, the interview, interrogation, inquisition proceeded until approximately 4 p.m. Durham police officers drove Miss Mangum back home. Post-interview, Crystal Mangum was an emotional wreck. She took Ambien to help her sleep that night. Mangum's attorney, Anita Hunt, tried to get a recording of Mangum's interview, but the Attorney General's office told her that there was no record in existence of the March 2007 Mangum interview. Attorney Hunt found this hard to believe. Instead, she thought her request was brushed off because she was not listed as Crystal Mangum's attorney of record. Attorney Hunt then asked Crystal Mangum to try and obtain an audio recording of the interview. The receptionist told Mangum that there was no recording of the interview, but forwarded her request. Later that day, Assistant AG Mary Winstead returned Mangum's phone call and told her that no record of the interview existed. No recording was made. In other words, the AG's office, which was conducting the investigation, had no written, audio, video documentation of what transpired at SBI's Raleigh headquarters during the 6-hour interview with Crystal Mangum. A day or so later, the Assistant Attorneys General asked Mangum to appear for a second interview. The night prior to the interview, she took a muscle relaxant for neck pain and Ambien to help her sleep. In the morning, unfortunately, she was incoherent and definitely in no condition to provide meaningful testimony. The interview was canceled and Mangum was returned home. Days later, Attorney Hunt asked to meet with Mangum. At that meeting, on or about April 9, 2011, Anita Hunt requested that Crystal Mangum sign a document releasing the Hunt law firm from representing her. Mangum had neither sought nor wanted the dissolution of their legal association, but readily acquiesced to the request and signed the papers presented by Attorney Hunt. Miss Mangum's understanding was that once the criminal phase of the Duke Lacrosse case had been resolved, then the Hunt law firm would reestablish their legal relationship and pursue charges against Duke University in civil court. Without advance notice from the Hunt legal firm or the Attorney General's office, Crystal Mangum learned from the media on April 11, 2007, along with the rest of the country, that all criminal charges in the Duke Lacrosse case had been dropped. Attorney General Roy Cooper issued the promulgation at a televised news conference in which he made the unprecedented statement declaring that the 3 Duke defendants were, quote, innocent, unquote, and that no criminal activity took place at the party. This was definitely not the outcome Crystal Mangum had desired, but one with which she knew she would have to accept. The Hunt law firm did not reach out to Miss Mangum thereafter. Crystal Mangum had maintained throughout the ordeal and to this day that she told the truth about her victimization at the 2006 Duke party. But that did not quell calls for her to be charged with filing a false police report against the 3 Duke student-athlete defendants. Michael W. Chapman, managing editor of CNS News, Jonas Spilbor, attorney and television legal analyst, and Michael Gamer, columnist for Renew America, were among the loudest calling for Crystal Mangum's arrest and prosecution for falsely filing a police report. A.G. Roy Cooper tamped down prosecutorial consideration against Mangum for filing a false police report, in large measure attributing her actions to mental illness. Though Mangum's involvement in this case, like the Duke Lacrosse defendants, had come to an end, trouble for Durham District Attorney Mike Nifong were just beginning.